Okay, the next question. Define womanhood, and then do women of power today get these positions by leaving their womanhood behind and become political realists? Realism is defined by Morgenthau as a struggle for power. Is there an overemphasis of this in the U.S.?
When I was watching the elections, one of the talking head groups said that the Walmart moms voted Obama. What was interesting to me about that is that they have this whole group that they call Walmart moms, and so a group of women that identify as mothers and are voting their conscience or voting their position on issues from the position of motherhood. Now, how does motherhood relate to womanhood? Well, that's another question. I think the whole concept of womanhood is an entirely slippery slope as we move across time, as Norma has already said, across culture, particularly across sexual orientation. So I wouldn't be very comfortable pinning in womanhood, pinning that down, but still, I thought it was.
And that was something. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was something that we had discussed in class. Was how do you define womanhood? There are so many different ways you can go there, and that was something that we struggled with. And we're not even sure we wanted to ask that question for that very reason.
Well,
so,
yeah, it's a very troublesome question
right.
to try to define womanhood, and I think the longer the feminist movement has been in existence, the farther away we've gotten from that question, and wanting to avoid the essentialism as if there is an essential core of woman that somehow will fit all, but.
And that to be a woman, you have to deny an essential part or embrace an essential.
Yeah, but
right?
I mean, and so it feeds into a very conservative, understanding of the world in which, woman, nurturing, home, man, active, outside the home, powerful, and so I mean that's what it seems. It seems that's what this question sort of implies, is that if a woman is going to be Speaker of the House, somehow she has, denied her womanhood. And I mean, if you put it in a historical context, go back to the late 1800s when American women were asking for education, the vote, property, and so forth. I mean, one of their rationales for having the vote or being in government, well, we will bring our womanliness to it. We're nice. We're nurturing mothers. We're virtuous nurturing mothers. You need that in government. And so, yeah. So that element of this argument has been around for a long time. And if you go to say second wave, if you go to the women's lib era, you have tracks of sort of feminist arguments saying, no, women are just the same as men, we can do anything men can do. But then you have a sort of cultural feminism that says, no, we need to give more honor to the traditional roles of women. We should be giving more respect to motherhood. We should honor the arts and crafts that women have done at home. And so there is that element to it also. The media in, say, the 70s said, oh, well, feminists, they just want to be men. They want to be men. And so that's sort of the reputation that, women who wanted power, got in America thanks to a conservative media. But I think there's always been another strain that says, well, respect the womanly traditions as well. But again,
I'm not
no,
sure what those.
there's a real pitfall there in trying to define.
I was going to say, what is the womanly tradition?
Yeah, but I mean,
know.
culturally, you know, what did women do? They made quilts, say, something, you know, stuff like that, yeah.
Well, do you feel like for a woman to be in a position of power, like a CEO or a politician, they have to abandon traditional femininity? Do they have to be more masculine or androgynous?
You mean in terms of clothing,
Everything.
Self,
Do they have to
self-presentation,
abandon
in terms of their hobbies? I don't
When you
know.
look at people you would consider, like, who are taken seriously as a political candidate, like Hillary Clinton, she's taken seriously to run for president, but that's, a lot of that I feel like is because she does, like, quote, like, butch it up with pantsuits and everything.
And she said, I don't make cookies.
And they still ask her, who's your favorite clothing designer? And her reply to that was you ask a man that. And the interviewers didn't know.
But do you feel like that is why she is respected, is because she doesn't give in the traditional idea of womanhood and femininity? Do you feel like someone has to do that to be in a position of power to be respected? Do you feel like the very idea of expressing that you are in fact a woman or reminding people of that constantly makes them not respectable?
I don't, you might consider a counterexample of Nancy Pelosi, who's pretty darn tough, but she's always making a big deal about how many kids and grandkids she has. So I don't know, what do you do with that? And she's also, I'm sure, she dyes her hair and had plastic surgery.
Yes.
She looks awfully darn good.
Well, the
for
male
70.
politicians do that too now.
Yeah.
I look back at, you know, Eleanor Roosevelt and Margaret Thatcher, and I see them being feminine and strong. And that's why that question for me rings a bell, because I thought, I've always thought that Eleanor Roosevelt, I mean, she did not give up her womanhood. She did not give up her femininity. And yet she stood up in front of the UN. And, you know, then we've got Margaret Thatcher, and she handled some very difficult foreign affairs, difficult autonomy issues, and did it with, to me, a sense of grace. And yet she had an iron will.
Well, maybe you should tell us what femininity is.
Well, I think that
You wanna
every woman
define it?
has to define that for themselves. I don't think that long hair, short hair, fat, skinny, tall, dressed in couture or dressed in jeans makes a difference.
Okay.
It's who you think you are inside.
But we're talking about public perception.
Right. I know.
And if the
So
public will respect someone.
exactly, and I can't judge what the public wants. I'm not in media relations that way.
But there remains a glass ceiling for women
Oh, yes.
in corporate America, as well as women in the academy. You look at the number of women we have on faculty versus the number of women we have in the upper administration.
We've got deans, but we don't have the money people.
Well, just look at full professor versus assistant professor, associate. I mean, there's way more males in full professor positions.
I would like first to think about, you seem to have limited this concept of women of power to simply politics. But with the example of the academy, women of power can be very broadly. I was an Army officer, so some would maintain that that is a position of power, maintained through execution of power. Certainly CEOs of major corporations are in power positions. And I do believe that there's a line, Ms. Smith, about how far you can transgress cultural concepts of femininity and still be successful. We've talked about iron will. Certainly that's not something that would fall in the definition at that time of femininity. But she did it in a dress.
Yes.
If she'd had short butch haircut and slept with women or didn't have children, husband enough so that people would question her sexuality, things would have gone down very differently for her. Even in the workplace, you can constantly read about maybe recommendations on interview attire. You want to wear a skirt still, right? You want to bow to that tradition. But much is written on, well, it can't be too short, and you don't want to wear red, you don't want to be too sexualized, but you don't want to be too corporate or that type of thing. So I think there is a delicate balance, and it does depend on the corporate or other cultural attitudes. myself, when I entered into the Army as an officer, because I was enlisted first, but I went to college, was appointed as a lieutenant, I thought I was placed in a unit that had before that been entirely male. I was the first female. Congress opened up a bunch of jobs, and 3 months later, they sent me there. In an 18 Airborne Corps unit with a bunch of guys who had rarely, if ever, worked with women. So I often interpreted that I needed to be masculine in order to exercise power, because that's the language that they had. I thought I had to be one of the boys and that type of thing. By the time I was a major and left the Army, I'd figured out that actually there's no need to do that. It wasn't as productive as I would have liked it to be. Or maybe that was changing times, you know, that was a number of years later. So,
well, when you were in a position of power, do you feel like if you would have been very overtly feminine, really caring about your hair and makeup and like complaining that you couldn't wear high heels on the job or whatever it is people think femininity is, do you feel like you would have been respected by those you were in charge of?
Well, considering the fact that I had really short hair and was wearing camouflage and combat boots for a lot of the time, I still had male subordinates trying to sleep with me. Yeah, I think it would have gone down differently. But even this concept of womanhood and femininity is troublesome to me. I don't think this is asking us to think about the concept of woman, little w, woman, big W, or women. And what I'm from womanhood, or even feminine, because womanhood to me correlates nicely to manhood, and so it's a value system. It's a characteristic. It's not wearing skirts and having delicate features and gestures. Instead, womanhood to me is because of the association with manhood, is a position of power. So what is it that, and it's not essentialist kind of power, you know, like caring and soft and all those things. Womanhood is a maturity. It's not girlhood, right? So this is a powerful term, I think. Very nice.